You have to do it, at least if you want to reach the business of your dreams, but you don't have to do it blindly. So let's walk through a simple 3-step plan that's going to help you minimize your risk of failure while also boosting your confidence and helping you make the best decision possible. But heads up, this first step can feel a bit counterintuitive because before we can talk about how to manage your risk, we first need to talk about how to minimize it as much as possible. I know our society romanticizes risk and sometimes teaches us to even seek it, like that saying, you gotta risk big to win big. But the reality is, more often than not, taking on more risk than you need is just setting you up for a bigger failure, not a bigger success. That's why, looking back, one of the best choices I ever made, that is one of the main reasons I ended up being able to build my current dream business, was that I stayed in my job until I was making enough in my first online business to be able to replace my salary. To be clear, I did not want to wait. And it kind of sucked during the years that I was doing it. But if I'd left any earlier, I probably would not have had the peace of mind I needed to be able to do the things I needed to grow. That lesson is why, to this day, before I make any decision, I ask myself, what is the least risky way I can do this? Even if it feels less sexy or slower than burning the bridges and going all in. Because at least in my opinion, no goal, no matter how big or rewarding, is worth risking your mental health and peace of mind. Not to mention you and your loved ones' ability to meet your financial needs. So in case you needed to hear it today, you do not have to risk it all in order to have everything you want. In fact, most of the time, all you really have to do is to have just a little more patience. But let me know, do you agree or disagree? Especially when you factor in just how much it could cost you if you don't minimize your risk. For example, let's say you want to leave your job to work on your business full-time. Of course, it'll be amazing if it pays off. But we also got to talk about the honestly much more likely possibility that it's going to take you much longer than you think before your business gets going. So what are you going to do if you run out of savings and then have to go back to a 9-to-5 job? I know it sucks to think about it, but it is a very real possibility, which is why step 2 is to get real about what the worst case scenario actually is. This way, you can take all the possibilities into account and make the truly best decision for you. And there are 2 questions I like to use that help me do that. First, is there a possibility that getting to the result you want is going to take you longer than you can afford to wait? And don't forget to take Hofstadter's law into account. Things will always take you longer than you think they will, even when you factor this law into account. Because if there is a chance that you are not going to be able to wait until you can get the results that you want, then you got to go back to step number 1 and first minimize the risk until you can. This second question also happens to be one of the best pieces of advice I have ever gotten. Years ago, a mentor said to me, "My job, the way I see it, is not to prevent you from making any mistakes. My job is to prevent you from making a mistake so big that you can't recover from it." For example, let's say you get on a sales call and you get rejected. It sucks, but you are going to be okay. However, if you spend $10,000 on ads as a Hail Mary, even though you don't know what you're doing, well, now you're out $10,000 and you might not be so okay. So you gotta ask yourself, if the worst case actually happens, can I take the hit? If you can, and you think the potential payoff is worth that risk, go for it. But if not, it is a hard no. And by the way, when I say you, that includes anyone else who might be affected by your decisions too. That's also part of the reason I did not leave my job until I'd replaced my income. Because if I had run out of savings, I would have had to go move back in with my parents, and I was not gonna put that stress on them. This isn't the usual advice you hear to just focus on positive thinking, but I think that being real, including facing the potential downside, actually sets you up for faster success. Because what we're really doing is planning for the best case while also preparing for the worst case. For example, whenever I roll out a new product or try out a new strategy, I actually don't expect it to go super well the first time. In fact, I actually ask myself, what if this first promotion doesn't make a single sale? What if this strategy takes years before it pays off? And it's not because I'm being pessimistic. I am actually hoping for the best. It's also not because I haven't done everything I can to set myself up for success. I have, but I'm simply reminding myself that you are never guaranteed success, no matter how hard you work or how much experience you have. That's just how life goes. So I'm planning as if this new thing I'm doing is gonna take a while before it actually pays off. That includes making sure I've got enough cash in the bank to see it through. I've got backup plans to roll out if the worst case happens. And possibly most importantly, I am mentally prepared so that if the worst case happens, I know how I'm gonna handle it and it doesn't take me out. Otherwise, your success is just a question of when it'll happen. And that's why step number 3 is to plan for failure. Over time, this will become your default way of thinking, which will actually set you up for more success. For example, now, every time I run a promotion, I also have built in the flexibility to pivot my messaging if I see something not resonating. And I've also built in back-end offers that not only help my clients get better results, but also boost my sales. So ultimately, you're just training yourself to not have to rely on any one thing to help you hit your goals. Plus, you won't be devastated if things don't go exactly the way you want the first time around. So high five to you for ending up being more resourceful, resilient, and ultimately more successful. But I'd love to hear from you. Did any of these steps help you think differently about a scary decision that you've been contemplating? And if so, what is one thing you're gonna put in place now to help you minimize your risk and set you up for more success?